And you know these groups, the Freemen were probably the closest group that got the closest, I should say, to having this all situated. That's why they had to physically just go and burn the city down. When it was all being done, right, I had to speak with the guys from the Freemen. I had to speak with the so-called sovereign groups, patriot groups, all this. Name a group and I'll say, yes, I spoke with them.
Okay, so what you just heard was Heather Ann Tucci Jarraf discussing how she was influenced by the Montana Freemen. And that's a very important thing because it's important to understand the pedigree of this TDA scam. Now, for those who don't know, we already talked about Charles C. Miller. So let's start with him. Over on one of the documents, during Charles C. Miller's trial in early 2000s, a tape of Leroy Schweitzer was played. Who is Leroy Schweitzer? Why is that important to all this? First of all, over on the Office of Tax and Revenue Recorder of Deeds for the District of Columbia, you can find the original UCC statements for the One People's Public Trust. These are the foundational documents that Heather Ann Tucci Jarraf relies on for all the bullshit that she has been doing for the last 5 years. I want you to notice the important thing here. All these documents were filed by Charles C. Miller, again, the ex-convict who came out of the Montana Freemen. Now, Leroy Schweitzer, for those who don't know, was convicted of conspiracy, bank fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, false claims to the IRS, interstate transportation of stolen properties, threats against public officials, armed robbery of a television news crew, and firearms violation. He received 22 years in jail sentence for 25 guilty pleas, guilty whatever. And then once he was in jail, he died at age 73. And then the other ones got, how much did he get? One of them got 3 years, 12 years, 5 years, 1 year, 11 years, 15 years. Another one, Russell Dean, got his jail sentence extended by 15 years for trying to use liens on judges. Daniel Peterson got the same thing. He got another, how much was it? Can't find it, how much. Okay, but this is the important thing here. This is who Heather is getting her ideas from. Ex-convicts who in the 90s did the same thing, except with checks.
Do a lien, which I love Winston Shrout because nobody made it clear to me about what a lien was in the application of a lien and what it could not apply to than Winston Shrout. And I was so grateful for the work he did.
Okay, and here we have Heather citing Winston Shrout as an influence. I've talked a lot about Winston Shrout. There's no need to go into a whole lot of detail, but look, Winston Shrout is being sentenced to jail in 2 weeks. The fact that Heather is basing her actions and her information on a guy that is about to go to jail for the rest of his life is not a good thing. And I'm aware that this is an ad hominem, but we've already gotten into the details of why what Heather is doing is illegal and why her theories are wrong. This is really more of a rhetorical appeal to common sense here. You should not be basing your actions on the advice of criminals.
Or Frank, was it Frank O'Laughlin? No, Frank, he was doing similar stuff to Winston.
Now, the Frank that Heather is referring to here is none other than Frank O'Cullen, who is summarized and described in A and B v. Hancock, a case that I've discussed previously. But I'm going to read it again because it's important to, again, focus on the pedigree of where Heather is getting her ideas and theories from. Quote, however, this court has had some previous exposure to this concept and is aware that these materials have been written by Australian OPCA guru Frank O'Collins, who has invented an entire separate and codified legal system that may be viewed at the Ucadia website. Jurists and scholars take note. So just to restate what the judge is saying here, Frank made up his own rules and legal system. They have zero application going on, stating that one has set themselves unilaterally under a different and imaginary law has no effect on the jurisdiction and authority of the Canadian state and courts. Even if the One Heaven Supreme Court and its canon law had some relevance in Canada, then this court's inherent jurisdiction would expand to make this court the appeal court for this legal domain. Thus, and this is a key point here, the Ucadia materials are not merely a house built on a foundation of sand, but a house built on the illusion of a foundation of sand. A and B cannot legally purport to opt out and deny his consent via this mechanism, which is very similar to what Heather is currently doing by trying to opt out of the jurisdiction of federal courts and the federal system that has charged her criminally along with Randy. So, to summarize here, nothing Heather is doing has any legal or lawful merit. She is basing what she is doing on information from Winston Trout, the Montana Freeman, and Charles C. whatever, I forgot his name, and Ucadia, Frank O'Collins. None of these people have any legal training or expertise. None of these people have ever had a success in court. None of these theories have any recognition or validity in American court systems or courts in anywhere on this planet. So if you, for example, are attempting to get free money via a TDA account, which, by the way, do not exist, and you're relying on Heather's information to prevent you from going to jail if you do get charged criminally for trying to steal money from banks, it will not work, and you will end up in jail along with Randy and Heather Ann Tucci Jarraf. And by the way, if you go back to 2012 to 2013, Heather has put other people in jail, and her nonsense did not prevent those people from going to jail. Just look at the woman from New Zealand who wrote fake checks on Heather's advice. She got arrested, ended up going to jail, and well, there hasn't been any updates from her, but it could have gone a lot worse because I believe it was something like $3 million in bad checks. If it were the United States, she would still be in jail. Don't put yourself in a position where you're going to spend a huge chunk of your life in jail for listening to crazy women on the internet.